As a therapist, as a counselor, as a guide, I see over and over so much needless struggle, so much needless pain, so much needless suffering because it comes down to something that we could do better on. We can actually control. There's so many things in life we don't control, but this is not one of them. And it's called communication. If we could communicate more effectively, if we could help others communicate with us more effectively, I'd be out of a job. Because again, so much of our life and our struggles comes down to ineffective communication from us and from others. My teacher and mentor, Viktor Frankl, says there are only two ways to move through the world. There's reaction and there's response. Reaction comes from a place of survival. It comes from a place of fear. We're just getting by. But response, right? As he says, you can choose your response. It's higher consciousness. It's certainly more effective, and it creates a much more peaceful life for all of us. So let's stop reacting and start responding to the people around us by knowing our Enneagram type, and let's help them stop reacting and start responding to us by knowing theirs. There are 9 fundamental ways to communicate. Now, there are lots of nuances within the Enneagram. There are actually hundreds or thousands of types because you have wings and lines and subtypes. But there are 9 genres, 9 sort of fundamental energies, especially when it comes to communication. I'm going to give you the sort of the essence of communication for each one and how to stop reacting and start responding as a 1 or to a 1 and so forth. So let's start with Enneagram 1, the reformer, the perfectionist. Enneagram 1s move through the world, well, like their name says, trying to reform. They're change agents. They want things to be better, if not perfect. Now, this can become a very critical type. You know, it's the church lady wagging her finger back in Saturday Night Live, right? And a lot of shoulds. I say they're the ones who should all over everything. And especially they should all over themselves. I should. Enneagram 1s live with so much inner criticism. So the number one thing with an Enneagram 1 is don't criticize them. And also don't accept their criticism and challenge them, push back. Because oftentimes it's really about their shortcomings, their failings, that they're just boiling over in anger or frustration. It comes out on you. My son, I have 4 kids. One of my kids, my son, is a 1. Our relationship got so much better once I understood how much criticism is inside this kid. He doesn't need me to criticize him. I have a daughter who's an 8. She needs a lot of criticism. He doesn't. When I stopped criticizing him, our relationship got so much better. My job with an Enneagram 1 is to soothe their critical soul, is to bring down some of that anger, that frustration, and to help them see the forest through the trees, to help them remember, as the saying goes, that perfection is the enemy of the good. Hey kid, it's good enough. You know, with every other Enneagram type, my job is to help them become better. As it's been said, my job with the 1, to help them become worse. They're the good boy. They're the good girl. Don't question an Enneagram 1's integrity, responsibility. It doesn't mean they're always responsible, but they sure try harder than any other type. It's like their oxygen. And if you question their character, their morality, you're just crushing the spirit of a 1. Now, as far as the style go, Enneagram 1s are much more formal. I have the mouth of a truck driver. I'm an 8. And so I'll swear a lot. I notice that it makes 1s uncomfortable. I try not to. My son, who's a 1, I've never heard him swear. I don't remember a single swear word coming out that kid's mouth. And yet here I am, his father, swearing a lot. So they're just much more conservative in nature. They usually stay away from the highs and the lows, much more even-keeled. There's subtypes that challenge that, but by and large, a much more formal type, respectful type, sort of a buttoned-up type, more conservative with a small c. And so really treating them, well, in that vein and understanding that that's their safe space, that's their comfort zone, and respecting it. Okay, Enneagram 2. Enneagram 2, the helper, the nurturer, the lover. They're an expressive type. We've moved into the emotional types. 1's more of a body type, a little more guarded. By the way, 1s are really kind of stiff at first. They're not big huggers, so that's an important thing to know. 2s are much more hugging. They're much warmer. It doesn't mean 1s are cold. It just means it's a strategy to survive. 1s are a little more guarded. 2s are a little more, well, giving. That's another name for them. So Enneagram 2s, they like details. 1s really like a lot of details, so give them a lot of details and be prepared for details. 2s like details, but more from the relationship perspective. Like if I'm on a call with a 2 client, they'll always want to know about my wife and my kids, and they're not just asking to be nice. They actually care. They want to know. They're all about relationships. So speak to relationships with an Enneagram 2. Enneagram 2s, they need that. They need that warm up. You don't just jump in with a 2. You really ask about their kids, not as a form of manipulation, but as a way to build trust and connection. 2s are all about connection. 2s are a much more informal style. 1s are one of the more formal types. 2s are one of the more informal types. So Enneagram 2s, you really just have to sort of soften it up a little bit and be a little more casual and, more relationship oriented. They are just a little more go with the flow when it comes to conversations. And now here's something 2s do a lot of. They'll boomerang the conversation on you because they're more comfortable with you than they are with themselves. So oftentimes they don't know their needs. They don't know what they're feeling. That's why they're so interested in you. That's not why, but it's a reason why they'll turn it around on you to, care about your feelings and tend to your needs. Make sure you turn it back on them. Not intensely. They don't deal with intensity well, but gently, making sure that you talk about them because they'll turn the conversation on you every time. Enneagram 2. Enneagram 3, I'm not doing everything, I'm just sort of giving you the flavor. Enneagram 3, the achiever, the performer. Now, they're probably the most charismatic of all Enneagram types. They're charming. They're chameleons. So they really can blend and adapt to any situation and circumstance. That's part of their superpower. They'll match you and meet you where you are. Now, one of the challenges is they don't always know where they stand with their core values. Very different than a 1. A 1's just anchored in their values and their integrity. 3s can sort of lose that in trying to impress, trying to perform. But in the process, as a recipient of that, it feels very good because 3s will see you, they'll talk to you, they'll speak to you. Now, it can be manipulative. 2, 3s, and 4s can all be very manipulative. 2s can do it more from a giving to get and a flattery and a tending to you. 3s can do it more from a trying to get what they want, trying to win. And so maybe not doing it intentionally, but fudging the truth, telling you partial truth or incomplete truths. So 3s really need to stay in their integrity and make sure they're not selling you. 3s they're efficient. They like to get to the point. 2s are inefficient. They like to meander and wander in conversations, but 3s really like it sharp, want to know sort of the beginning, the middle, the end. They want, some key objectives. They want takeaways. They want to get the job done. So really 3s are one of the most, if not the most efficient and sort of directed communication styles. Enneagram 4, back to indirect. They're the most indirect. 2s like to wander in conversation around relationships. 4s just like to wander in conversation. When I get a text message just like this long, I know it's from a 4. And usually they use the biggest words. They use words like ineffable. I always share this one, but I have a doctoral degree in divinity, and I'm not even sure I know what ineffable means, but they'll use it in talking about the coffee they just drank. It was an ineffable experience. So 4s go long, they go deep, they go dark, it's sophisticated. They use these big words. Don't let that scare you. In some ways, they're testing you to see if you'll make the journey with them. Don't rush 4s. They need to meander. Like the 2s in a relationship, 4s need to do it through emotion. 3s are not emotional. They're the least emotional type, even though they're at the center of the emotional triad. But they really don't do emotional naturally or well. In responding, they can, but not at first glance. And so Enneagram 3s are the least emotional, 4s are the most emotional. So be prepared for emotion. Do not tell an Enneagram 4 she is too much. That is a trigger for a 4. If you tell a 2 that she's manipulating you, or flattery is not sincere, or she's giving to get, watch out. If you tell a 3 he or she is not enough, that they're not a winner, that look out, and if you tell a 4 she's too much, because she's lived her whole life, and I say she because I'm married to her, she's lived her whole life being told she's too much, but her superpower is her depth and her sophistication and her emotion. Be prepared and let 4s emote. Even if you're not comfortable with it, they need to emote. Now, if you're a 4, you need to remember most people aren't as comfortable with this emotion thing as you are. So keep that in mind. But 4s are beautiful. They're deep. They can go dark. If you're a 4, try and lighten it up. Probably, the person at the water cooler isn't ready to talk about the meaning of life at 8 a.m. at the beginning of a workday. Enneagram 5s. They're one of the hardest types to communicate with because they're so smart. They're intellects, the investigator, the thinker. They live oftentimes in their brain. They'll think, they won't necessarily feel. Now, it doesn't mean they don't feel, but they think about their feelings. They need time to process their feelings. 4s need time to get into their thinking. 5s need time to get into their feeling. So don't overwhelm a 5 with too much anything. Too much attention, no surprises, and certainly not too much emotion. Bring them in the shallow end. Again, they're the most easily overwhelmed type. So really think of it as more of a conservationist. They're a lot like 1s. I get 1s and 5s mixed up a lot. 1s are conservative too, but true conservation, like less is more. They're minimalists in their lives. They'll have certain areas like books or computers where they overdo it, but by and large, less is more. The same is true in communication. Right? Don't call them 30 times. Call the 4, the 2 30 times. Be efficient with the 3s and be extremely conscientious with the 5s because you'll lose them. You'll overwhelm them. Don't let 5s off the hook by just thinking, right? You have a right to be in a full relationship with the 5, like a partner. Ask for emotion, but don't demand it. Give them time. But don't assume they're not feeling about you just because they can't express it. Let them go away. But when they come back, ask for it. I want to know how you feel about X, Y, and Z. They can go, 4 and 5 are the deepest of the types, and they can go deep. They can be great partners in relationship, but you really got to bring them along. Enneagram 6, the loyalist, I forget, it doesn't matter. We'll just call them the loyalist. They're a head type. 5, 6, and 7 are the head types. But they're conflicted about their thinking. So that comes across oftentimes as almost an analysis paralysis, a little bit wishy-washy. They have lots of questions. They have lots of doubts. They have lots of fears. We all do, but they wear it on their sleeve oftentimes. When I'm in a relationship with a 6, I just give them room for their questions. They'll ask me the same question over and over and over again. Now, I used to sort of shut it down and say, hey man, I told you that answer. But now I understand what they're doing. They're probing for sincerity or loyalty. These are your most loyal customers. They're your most loyal partners. They're your most loyal friends until you betray them. If you betray them, it's very hard to get their trust back because they've gone through so much vetting before they invest themselves into a project or to, it could be a religion or to you as a person. So certainly don't betray them. And one of the ways you make them feel confident and secure is making room for their doubts, allowances for their insecurities, pushing them, challenging them to get out of the analysis paralysis to make a decision. Sometimes they just need to stop thinking and get into action, get into doing. But 6s, when they give you their heart, you'll have it forever. Again, treat it very, very sensitively because they don't just give it out easily. Enneagram 7s, the enthusiast, the optimist, the visionary. So 7s are probably the fastest movers on the Enneagram. 7s and 8s, but in different ways. 7s, though, tend to have ADHD, even if it hasn't been diagnosed. They have lots of different interests, lots of directions. They're going in 360 degrees all the time. So give them the headlines, certainly not the copy, maybe the bylines, but really the headlines. You won't have their attention for long. So lead with it because while you got them, get while the getting's good because they won't be around for long. Doesn't mean they can't be loyal. Doesn't mean they can't be in relationship, but they're not the loyalist. They won't have a lot of questions for you. They won't have a lot of doubts. The optimist, they'll see the sunny side. Now, challenge 7s, or if you're a 7, challenge yourself because sometimes the sunny side, the optimistic side, is a way to bypass the real issues, the difficulties. Sometimes we got to move through the conflict, or else we're just, as we call it, spiritual bypassing. We're going around the hard stuff to get to the good stuff, but you got to go through it. And 7s really need to deal more in darkness. 4s need to deal more in light. 7 needs to deal more in darkness. They're yin and yang on the Enneagram. 8s. Now, 8s are a lot like 7s in that you give them the headlines. Doesn't mean they can't handle the bylines or the copy, but they don't want to be controlled. And if you don't start with what you're after, you'll lose them because they'll start to feel manipulated, right? You're telling them all the details of something, but they want to get to the, what are we talking about here? What do you want from me? Now, once you got them, once they feel secure with you, they don't feel like you're controlling them, then you can go deeper into the minutia, but don't lead with the minutia. As I said, they're all about control. I'm an Enneagram 8. I can feel like a sixth sense when I'm being controlled. 7s don't want to be limited. So don't pin them down with too many obligations and responsibilities and commitments, not all at once. 8s don't want to be controlled. We can feel when we're being corralled, coerced. My kids know that there's 2 types of lying. There's lies of commission, saying things that aren't true, but the bigger one is lies of omission, leaving out the truth or leaving out the thing that's the lie. And I can smell it, and they get in so much trouble when they do lies of omission, leaving things out. Enneagram 8s are the most intense type from an energetic perspective. 7s are the most intense type from a thinking perspective and movement, energy. But 7s are intensity. So first of all, don't back down when an 8 gets intense. You need to put your hand up and say, stop, don't talk to me like that, or meet them fire to fire, and they will back down. Don't try, though, and overpower them. You can meet them. You can stop them. You can't overpower an 8. It's their superpower. It's also their kryptonite. I think of 8s communicating, like me, when I'm reactive, when I'm unconscious, as drinking from a fire hose. Fire hoses are great for putting out fires. But if you bring a fire hose to your garden, you're going to blow off the topsoil. So the right time, the right place, you want a firefighter. But oftentimes 8s, you got to turn it down to be a garden hose. And people can drink from a garden hose and not blow the back of their head out with the pressure because you're so intense. Enneagram 9s, and by the way, 8s are direct communicators. 7s are direct communicators. 3s are direct communicators. 6s are more roundabout. 2s are more roundabout. 4s are more roundabout. 5s are more of a need to know basis. So you can see 1s are more need to know. 9s are more need to know. So Enneagram 9, the peacemaker. They're a complicated type. It feels like it's easy to talk to them and you feel like they're hearing you. They're not easy. On the surface, they're easy. They're peaceful. But oftentimes, I have a daughter who's a 9, and I know I'm not getting through because 9s, 8, 9s, and 1s are the body types. We don't like to be controlled. 9s don't like to be controlled either. However, instead of coming back at me with fire, she'll become the turtle. She'll go into her shell. I've lost her. I can't reach her. So when I'm overly controlling or overly intense, they start to back away, to shy away. So you got to turn down the intensity, turn down the volume. With 8s, you got to turn it up or I can't hear you. With 9s, you got to turn it down or they can't hear you. If you're a 9, you need more direct communication. 9s will say they don't care or they'll talk around something. They need to go to the difficult thing first. You need to say, hey, I want Chinese tonight. I don't want sushi. I don't like sushi. We always go to sushi and I keep saying yes when I mean no. If you mean no, then say no. 9s, don't let them off the hook because they're easy. Challenge the easiness. As it's been said about 9s, don't believe their head nodding yes. If they say they'll do something, doesn't mean they'll do it. Not because of integrity, but because there's a lot of conflict. They don't really want to do it, but they're not telling you the truth. And the truth is, inside is a no. So if you're a 9, take up more space. Turn up your volume. If you think you turned up your volume, turn it up some more. If you're an 8, turn down your volume. If you think you turned it down, turn it down some more. These are just fundamental ways to, I think I described more of how to interact with this type, but certainly also how to live as this type so that none of us have to live in this reaction. have to feel that we're here without a roadmap so that we can stop reacting and we can start responding to others and getting them to respond to us. If you want to learn more about the Enneagram, what your Enneagram type is, your communication style, and so much more, then check out Own Your Number. It's my intro to the Enneagram, where you'll get your Enneagram assessment and you'll get the 9 fundamental ways that the Enneagram moves through the world so you can stop reacting and you can take back your power to choose your response. I will see you in the next video.